Yeah, absolutely. And the portal is actually hurting the high schoolers.
Absolutely, but only in that uh, coaches are really inspired to win now. And if you are a good assessor of talent, you can go into the portal and say, here are the gaps in my current team. Let
Mhm.
me pick people who I know can hack it academically. I know that they can already get into college. I know that they've got their time management down, and they have a skill set to help me win now. So I think high schoolers are going to have to do a much better job of marketing themselves and
Mhm.
really matching themselves to the appropriate programs.
There we go.
Absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let us get started so we can share this wisdom to the world. All right. So, Facebook. All right, ladies and gentlemen, had some technical difficulties. Are you surprised? I'm behind this whole thing. So it's nothing new. But my name is Audrey Connor Gibson, and I am your academic for athletes. And I definitely wanted to thank you so much for spending the time with us as we're sitting here and talking about becoming a college athlete. And there is so many aspects. There are so many things that needs to be discussed. I've stalked you guys on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you named it. I stalked you and I saw your questions and I pulled your questions. Some of you guys actually gave me questions, which is awesome. But at the same time, it just seemed like the questions kept saying repeat, 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 or a lot of people were saying follow, following, following. So instead of you guys keep following people who are just as lost, why not ask the experts? That is why we are here. So let me just do like a quick intro, and then we're going to get right to the questions and answers because this is really developed for you. So first off, I want to introduce Miss Katie Anderson. She is a former D1 athlete in soccer and a private college counselor. She thrives on helping athletes who are not heavily recruited and to find the best school and athletic program that fits that athlete. So we're going to talk about recruiting with her. We also have Miss Z Butler as a former JUCO and D1 standout college player and the founder of the Ball Code. So Z is taking her experience as a college player to help others with their recruiting process. Through step-by-step and instructional analysis, Z can help you on your path to finding the right program for your athlete. So we all going to talk about not only getting into college, but also talking about how the business of being a college player. Then we also have Miss Jamesetta Cleveland. She's a mother of two athletes and the founder of Sports Mom University. So Jamesetta created a support space for mothers of high school athletes where they weren't any during the time going through the struggle of that recruiting process. So Jamesetta helps parents understand what is needed throughout the NIL and branding process. So if you kind of caught us earlier, we're going to talk about that. Later on, we also have Mark Hayes. He's a former D1 football player from Howard University and a news anchor and entrepreneur and doing big things. Also just finished up a TED Talk. So you should definitely check that out on YouTube. Mark has used his experience as a player and a parent to assist athletes in their decision in finding the right program, again, that best suits your students' abilities on and off the field and how to support parents as we go through it. And then we have Miss Janae McCollum Boyd. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. As a mother of two, everybody's a mother of two up in here, except for me. Not it. So as a mother of two athletic boys and an independent educational consultant of her own company, More Than Athletics, Janae took her experience of helping her eldest son with his recruiting journey to assist other families to find the program that will advance their academic and athletic goals. And I think that's all we have for today because later on we're missing Miss Ashlyn Parks. She said she might be able to get here a little bit later. And then also Dominic, he is currently doing stuff with his group, so with the nutrition. So let's get started. I am want to go straight into, because this is what you want. Let's hit with the NIL. Let's not hold back. Let's just go hard. We're going to go hard. So, Miss James Setta, if you may, please, the main question that kept going over and over again is, what is NIL and how do I get started?
So, NIL is short for name, image, and likeness. And in a nutshell, as of July 1st of 2021, 100% of the collegiate athletes in the United States and its territories are able to take advantage of what they call their name, image, and likeness opportunities, meaning that for the first time in history, businesses can actually go to student athletes and say, hey, we would like to sign a contract with you so that you can represent us from a brand marketing perspective. Individuals, fans are able to go directly to athletes and say, hey, I would like to book you to be the personal appearance at my daughter's birthday or at my son's birthday party. So the money in and of itself does not come from the universities. It comes from third-party companies that athletes are signing contracts with to represent their brands. It also comes by virtue of entrepreneurship. In the past, athletes couldn't just start their own businesses. You had to go through a waiver process, or you could be told no, because the NCAA was fearful that people would actually support athletes' businesses just because the athlete played up at a particular school. So now if you're a college athlete, and for me, this is one of the major opportunities for student athletes, you can actually start your own business and you don't have to be afraid of losing your scholarship. Your name, image, and likeness money does not impact your athletic scholarship or your grant and aid if you're getting an academic scholarship either. It might impact your Pell Grant or your FAFSA, but no one's going to lose their scholarship, and no one is going to actually have their monies capped. The other thing that college athletes can do, which is amazing, they have an opportunity to actually monetize their content. If you don't know it or not, platforms like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and Twitter, if you are successful in creating a community on those platforms, they will actually start paying you. YouTube is an example. There was a young gentleman who went to one of the schools in Florida. He played football and he had a YouTube channel. It was just him talking about his daily life, not necessarily focusing on the sport, but of course it did include the sport because that's something that he was doing. It was very lucrative. And he was told by the NCAA, okay, if you have a choice, you can either lose your football scholarship or you can lose your channel. And he chose to give up his scholarship and stop playing. And his YouTube channel is very lucrative. And he actually part of what he does is makes his living off of YouTube. So for the first time, athletes can actually monetize their content, and they can begin to collect checks in multiple different ways. And this is not going to impact their ability to play. It doesn't impact their scholarships or their stipends that they get from schools. It's a really awesome opportunity.
I mean, I think that's wonderful because I kind of wish I had it, but then there's always, that underlining, when it comes to now, I've got to get worried about as a teammate. Like for me to know that, all right, I know that you're making $1 million because it's everywhere, but I'm only making like 10 grand, or I'm making like 5, maybe a couple thousand. And I'm wondering, like, how is that going to like, do you think that's going to make a major impact? Like while these athletes are on the same team, but everyone has different contracts. And I mean, like, how do you feel about that? Is that like or am I making stuff up?
So this is something that I tell my clients. It's really funny. I have a monthly NIL mastermind with my college and professional athletes. And tonight's a mastermind, so I'm fresh out of the mastermind. There are two types of money in the name, image, and likeness world. There's what I call traditional marketing opportunities, which is me money. It's the quarterback from Clemson who has a deal to advertise Pepsi. It's the people who have the linemen who have their deal with Denny's as a part of the pancake group. So there's traditional opportunities, but then there's what I call we money. And we money is when when athletes recognize that they can build their own communities. And when you build your own community, you get money from your own merchandise that you may sell directly to a community. You may get money from monetizing your content online, or you may have a Twitch channel. We did a small exercise with my group. I challenged them because in our society, we're taught to think that marketing success is I am all over the world, I'm all over the country, I got the big deal. And so I challenged them to think differently. Success is really a community. Let's just say if you're an athlete and you have a community of 5,000 loyal people who rock with you, who will purchase anything that you tell them to buy. And you say, okay, guys, I'm gonna release a t-shirt once a month for $10. If all 5,000 of those people purchase a t-shirt at $10,000 a month, that is $600,000 a year. And so what I tell athletes is that stop counting other people's pockets and figure out who you are as an individual. Who are you and how do you prefer to show up in the world? And once you figure out how you prefer to show up in the world, then you go out and you build your community. And when you build your community, that is where you really, really, really begin to leverage me money. And when you leverage me money, you're going to get the we money from the traditional opportunities. Because if you go look at the traditional opportunities that people are given, it's based on their social media following. So these are athletes who have not intentionally built communities. And companies are assuming, rightfully so, that just because a person sees an athlete drinking something or wearing something, that his or her fans are going to want to purchase it. That's been historically true. However, they're not just picking random athletes. They're picking big names because big names have big followings. But one of the things we should all know about social media is just because you have a lot of followers doesn't mean that you have a lot of purchasing power. It's not the followers, it's the engagement. So I tell people, seek to build a community. The number I give them is, well, once you figure out who you are and how you prefer to show up in the world, then you can figure out, okay, if you're, for example, Chad Johnson is a really good example. He's known for playing FIFA. He found his FIFA community, and the platform that he uses is Twitch. And he is able to fund his entire lifestyle, including all of his children, simply by playing FIFA with a bunch of people on Twitch. Twitch is a subscription service where you pay a monthly subscription and you actually get to game with somebody. But he doesn't have 1 million people following him on Twitch. You just really need a strategically placed few thousand. Actually, 1,000 is the number. And so if I were telling somebody, where would I start? One, don't worry about any deal that anybody else has, because it doesn't matter. Who you are, how you prefer to show up in the world, and taking the time to find your community and let them know, hey, I'm over here on the platform of your choice, and building a connection with them. That is the way that you leverage true opportunity in the world of name, image, and likeness, because that's going to give you me money. And then once people see that your tribe, they talk to you, they share your content, they save it, they shout you out, then advertisers by default, they come out to you and say, hey, I think I need to talk to you, because these people that follow you, they're not just numbers, they're actually active people. So I hope that makes sense. Because if you look at it that way, there's no need for jealousy in the locker room, because really, if someone else got $1 million contract, if they're not able to cultivate engagement of the people that if that presence doesn't result in actual sales, return on ad dollars for companies, then companies will simply do what they've always done: release the current talent and find someone else to represent the brand. There's really nothing to be jealous about.
I mean, sometimes it's just like when it initially starts, sometimes I just kind of concerned. And I think maybe some of the parents might be concerned, like, the kids will be able to start. And sometimes we don't know what's on their little twitches and
that part.
yeah,
Come on, talk about it. That's the concern.
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Let's just even go with that.
Those are the concerns.
Yes.
That is the concern. And those are the things that, like, it's interesting because people talk about, well, oh, it's size of contract, but you're exactly right. It's not size of contract. It is, each business has a particular persona. They have a way that they want their talent to show up as. And so you have to be mindful that maybe the way that this business wants your child to show up isn't congruent with your family values. And so I tell parents that even if you're adults, you have to have a designated decision maker. We don't do a very good job in this country of teaching young people to say no to adults. And so this is something that I tell parents. One, you want to be aware of every platform your child is on, and you actually want to have access to those platforms, because all kinds of, in the last 8 months, I've seen entertainment companies try to get athletes to represent them. It's adult entertainment companies try to get in, like, you're like, no, but you know what? It's really seductive. And so I tell parents, what you want to do is you want to teach your child to say, please send your information to whatever your family email address is going to be. And then you just tell them, my designated decision maker. I do not make any decisions. I have a team. My designated decision maker will get back to you with my decision. Send your proposal and we'll get back to you. Because what you're doing is, in a very respectful way, you're teaching your child to say no to adults. We do not do a good job of teaching the 17-year-olds or 18-year-olds or 19-year-olds to say no to the 50-year-old that has a business that wants them. But if you say, in the designated decision maker, it's mom and dad. You just want to set up the email address, and 100% of the time, I do not make decisions alone. I send this to my designated decision maker. And once you send it to my designated decision maker, we'll get back to you with a decision. That is something that I have had my family start using, and it's very helpful. It allows mom and dad to understand who's out there. Like, having access to their social media gives mom and dad an opportunity to really see who's in those messages that you wouldn't necessarily see. And then having the designated decision maker email allows mom and dad to see, oh, this is an underwear company. Maybe I don't want my child modeling underwear. Or, oh, this dream company isn't really a dream company. They're an adult entertainment company that has got a really pretty name, so that you don't know who they really are. And so your concerns are absolutely spot on. It's who's in my son's DMs, who's in my daughter's DMs, who's approaching them on the street. Because keep in mind, now they can be approached on the street. And am I teaching my child to say no in a respectful way 100% of the time? That's hard. That's really, really difficult.
It's hard because now we're putting that responsibility, because I'm going to go into a little bit with the recruiting, because all my recruiting people, get ready. What it's really happening, that we're putting a lot of this decision making, even though we have that parental support, but who's making the final decision? Most of the time it's these 17, 18, 19-year-old kids that now they're going to get all this money. And we've talked about it. Now they're getting all this money, and we're hoping that their support system is strong prior to all of this. Hopefully their support system is strong to help them with not only figuring out what brand they want to take, but also like the recruiting. So I want to kind of glaze into the recruiting, and then we're going to kind of spiral back, because I know a lot of this is going to come hand in hand, because that's what becoming an athlete really is. That's what's happening. Like, we're really going to hit on the business aspect of it. Like, the days of, I just want my kid to go out and run and get that energy out so they won't kill my house. It's more than that now. Now it's like we're talking about business deals. Now we're talking about colleges that want to use their athletic ability to kind of reach out. So if I may get to like Katie, I just want to kind of propose this question that was mentioned. Like, one of the things that a lot of people kept asking is, how do we get on those college coaches' radar? Just like how James Seta even mentioned, like, all these companies are coming to your kid. Now, how can the child get on their radar?
Right. So, and it's kind of interesting because I know that, many of us work with student athletes and we all have our own experiences. And I would hope that the things that I'm going to say are pretty consistent across all of our professional experiences. But getting on a college coach's radar today is maybe sometimes a little harder than you think. I've got a lot of kids who are, doing all the traditional thing, right? They make their recruiting video, they reach out to email coaches, they get no response. What does no response mean? I've got a bunch of parents who are like, of course, I would always respond to an email. Why would I not respond to an email? Why are these coaches, why aren't they even giving us any, if they're not interested, why don't they just tell us? So here are a couple of key things that your kids want to be doing when they're trying to get on a coach's radar. The first thing that I have my students do is prepare what I call a student athlete profile. It's essentially a resume. Now, whether that is a document that you attach to an email, or whether that's a website that you create, or whether you're present on a portal for your soccer team or your lacrosse team or whatever sport it is, you need to find some place to summarize both your athletic and academic experience, and make your recruiting videos visible. Okay, so you're also going to have a recruiting video. That's important in terms of getting on their radar. They've got to see you play your sport. You need to create an email template that you're going to use as an initial reach out to college coaches. That needs to spell out in very quick and precise terms, introducing yourself, give them your stats up front, give them a subject line that in your email that makes everything very crystal clear about who you are as an athlete and who you are as a student. Then probably the most critical piece of this reaching out to colleges and getting on their radar is making sure you're approaching the right colleges for your athletic ability and your academic ability and your financial health of your family. And I'll say that in a way because we've all had experiences with kids who end up getting the carrot dangled or getting suckered into a program. I was just gave an example of a student, one of my students who got this phenomenal offer from a phenomenal private school, but her family, I'm not so sure, can afford that. And but they decided to do it anyway because it just sounded too good. And I just think, oh, that's, I'm sorry, I'm gonna tell you 10 times over, maybe that's not the smartest move, because 2 years from now, when the coach who offered you the 60% scholarship isn't there anymore, that might be a problem. So making a list with the coach names and emails, which is all public information, it's all Googleable. Or you can go to, there are sites out there that will give you the names and email addresses of the head coaches of whatever your sport is across the country. Identifying those schools that are truly a good fit. And some of those schools will be reach schools in terms of, wow, academically, not sure I could really get in that school, but if a coach really wanted me, then maybe that could be a fit, right? Or target schools. And I really like to focus on target schools, the schools where kids are truly a good academic and athletic fit for that program. And then some backup schools where, wow, they gave me a lot of money. I have a hard time turning that one down because that makes a lot of financial sense for my family. And maybe I will be their best player, the best runner, the fastest swimmer on that team. But at the end of 4 years or 5 years, hopefully not 5 years, but 4 years, I'm going to get out of college without a ton of debt. And I will be able to live my life in my early 20s, not being stifled by debt payments. So really, those are the key ingredients to making sure that you get noticed, and emailing those coaches, filling out their recruiting forms. Every college out there has an athletic recruiting form that you can fill out to basically put yourself in their database. You can create a social media account. Social media has come up, and it will come up a number of times, and it's becoming a more and more important recruiting tool for student athletes. But I've got a lot of kids who don't want to use social media for athletic recruiting. And I try to tell them it's a missed opportunity, but I don't blame you. Like, I get it. I totally understand it, but you got to know that this is kind of a missed opportunity. And then I think another thing another tool for reaching out to coaches and getting on their radar and breaking through some of the sort of like thousands of emails that these coaches must get on a daily basis is basically asking your own coach, whether that's a high school coach or preferably a club coach, depending on your sport. Give them your top 10 list or your top 5 list of schools where you think you really, really like their program, you're interested in their school, you're a good fit for them, you think, right? Theoretically, all the numbers kind of make sense. And ask your club coach to advocate for you, to reach out to your coach is the perfect person to do that, to send an email or make a phone call on your behalf to say, hey, I've got a kid you just really need to talk to because I think they're a great fit for your program. That can be a wonderful way to break through all of the over communication that's going on today. And certainly showing up at club events, at camps, showing up at showcase tournaments, doing all those things are important tools for getting on the radar. But at the end of the day, it comes down to students being proactive and taking control over their recruiting process themselves and not giving up, being persistent. This process is going to take a while. And especially today with COVID, so many coaches are behind in their recruiting. Traditionally, they might have been 6 months prior, they might have had their list done. But today, that is not the case for many schools. So don't give up. So I'm sure I shared a little more than answering the question, but I think that is a pretty good overview of kind of what kids need to be doing to getting on the radars of the right schools.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically the information that these parents need, and I was going to go to Miss Janae for the next one because you hit on like a lot of the concepts. But one of the things I want to ask Miss Janae, because you've been through it on both ends, like you've actually created, and I think almost everybody here created their business because of their experiences. And you were experienced as a mother going through the whole process. And I think James Seta went through the same thing. And I want to kind of reach out to, when should everyone start the process? Because I've noticed like you know how to break it down as well. If you can share, like, what was your experience like as a parent? And then I know, Mark, I'm going to chime in with that because I want to hear your experience and how you tie things in. So, Ms. Janae, how was the process for you as a parent?
As a parent, so my son is a freshman, and of course my dogs are starting to bark.
That's fine.
He's a freshman playing football. He finished up his first semester. And so going through the process with him, we probably started like outside training around his freshman year, going to different camps, and then, him playing for his school. I would say I thought that I was doing everything that I could to set him up, but I wasn't strategic about it. And I think I also had the misconception of, if you just play high school ball, that you will be noticed, not realizing that recruiting is a whole nother beast and a whole nother business. And like Katie said, it's about being proactive. So going through that transition with him, we really didn't start the true recruiting process until after his senior season. And, I just said, we got to pull up our bootstraps and strategically find you a place to play. Obviously, academics was first for us. And so we were focused on that. But then also, let's focus on getting you somewhere to play. And then once that started happening, the domino effect of other coaches were noticing him in that conference or in our area. So that started where they're like, okay, it's a lot of competition. We've got one coach looking at him. So they're like, oh, well, we need to find out what's so great about this kid. Maybe he needs to come to our program. So back to now with my families that I work with, I can't stress enough starting earlier, exposure, really being strategic. The families that I work with, I would like for them to start before they even walk into a high school. One, because of the academics, but two, because of the exposure. The academics are so critical. You have to have 16 core courses for the NCAA, and it's different for Division I, and that makeup is different for Division II. And then the overall GPA is looked at for the NAIA. So a student can get in trouble very quickly that freshman or sophomore year. They think that they have time, and they could have blown their chances without even knowing it. So working with families and students before they walk into that high school, letting them know, okay, these are the classes that you need to take, that academic planning, in order to find that best fit school or be eligible for that best fit school. Because then you also have to look at, is this student going to, high academic school, Ivy League school? Division III schools have very high academics. So of course you have to plan for that and making sure that you're taking the right courses if you're going down that route. And then on the exposure route, a lot of my students, because this is what they want to do, they already know that they want to play at the next level. Making sure that they get that film, that 9th grade, that sophomore year, if they're playing varsity, going to the right camps, targeting the right sports analysts. That's another thing that most parents don't understand, is there are analysts that go to all of these camps across the country, and they are writing about student athletes, and college coaches subscribe to those reports. And so if you get in front of the right analyst and he is able to market you and write about your skill set, that again is one of those signals to college coaches, hey, I better check that kid out. So the earlier, the better, is just very key. So starting, like I said, before you step foot into a high school is critical academically and on the recruiting side for exposure.
And that is what needs to be mentioned, especially the academics. There is always some kind of verbiage that goes on in the school saying that, okay, they only care about your junior year. No, because there are so many, trust me, being a teacher, yeah, that's what they do. Oh, they only care about your junior year. And I'm just like, no, it's just like you said, before you guys come into that high school, you should be developing your skills as an 8th grader, as a 7th grader, like how to study, how to do the basic things so it can carry over. So when you're in high school, it's not so foreign. But a lot of kids that freshman year, I don't know if it is because they were like the big men on campus when they're in 8th grade, and now they're the little shrimp back in like as a freshman, and they're just trying to make their adjustments. And it just seems like academics kind of go into the wayside. Let me focus on, the sports. But then they also kind of have that thought process sometimes when they're going through this process. Like, yeah, I'm an athlete, I can get away with this. But I'm like, especially when it comes to the type of courses they have to take. A lot of people don't know that you need to have certain accredited NCAA classes. Like, they don't like the bridge classes. They don't like the intro to Algebra 2. They like Algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2. Some of those bridge classes they don't really care for. It's not like you can't graduate from high school, but sometimes they don't really like those. So if you have to take those classes, just be prepared that over the summer, you might have to do some kind of finagling. But it is that, and then plus what you said about the camps, making sure that these college coaches are actually going to some of these camps that you're going to. Because you love when they all sign up. They're like, oh, they have this school and this school, and the flyer looks all awesome, and everybody's excited. And then you get there, and you're like, where are the coaches at? What's happening? And it's a dead period. So obviously the coaches are not going to be able to go to these events because it's a dead period. And then if you don't know what a dead period is, that's another thing that you're going to have to ask us about. So everything that you mentioned was right on. Now, there's one thing that you do, Ms. Janae, that I really appreciate. You don't just, I mean, a lot of us do, but you don't just take them to, oh, you got to the college of your dreams, okay, and then you stop. What are some of the other things that you do that a lot of the big corporations, like once the kid signs, they're like, okay, let's take our picture. Ching, all right, good luck and bye-bye. But you do some other things, like talk to me about some of those other things you do.
So like right now with my college seniors who, have committed and all of that, now we need to focus on, getting you there and what that looks like. So connecting them with college athletes that are already there to share their experiences with them. Just really focusing on that transition. What does it look like for, what does that look like a day in the life of a college athlete? And then also, so really just focusing on that transition, making sure that they're prepared with time management because their schedule is going to be crazy once they start school. So that is really the focus that second semester of senior year until they leave for the summer is focusing on that transition. And then once they get to college, I still stay connected with my college